Happy Friday afternoon. And when I say afternoon, it's more like early evening. It's 4 o'clock. Y'all been a little busy. I've been playing nurse. But Mr. Buddy, he's on the mends. He's moving up. He just ain't got up. But he's on the mends. So, I've been tending to him and doing all my normal stuff. But guys, I promised you that when I harvested the greens, we would can them, okay? And I think I spoke with Miss Betty this morning, one of our lady friends, and she wanted to see how I can greens. I actually mentioned doing this on this weekend's vlog. I don't know how this weekend's vlog's gonna go since Mr. Buddy he's still in his chair. Like I said, he's moving upward, but he hadn't got up yet, okay? But I know a lot of you are probably gonna say, well, Lippy, where's your meat? Lippy, where's your seasoning? Well, you know what Lippy says. If it's not in the ball book, I don't do it. And speaking of this, I thought I would share. Now, I only brought like 5 of my books. I actually have 16. I think I've got 16 canning books. Many of you are very familiar with this one, okay? I don't go to it much. It's a good ball book, but as I've said before, a lot of times you have to reference back to like page 3, but you were on page 35 and so forth. But we're gonna start here. On page 389, it tells you how to can greens, okay? So if you have this book, you can reference to page 389 and it's gonna tell you. But what I found to be interesting, okay, where's my glasses? Because I want to read the year to you. I just grabbed some at random. This one was a 1983 ball book. And on page 66 tells you how to can greens. Identical to one of the newest ball books that a lot of you are familiar with. Exactly the same, okay? So I said, well, let me look at, let's see what year, 95. We were what, 83? We're at 95. This one is page 63. Again, the same recipe. And I hated that I bent my pages, but I didn't have a marker. And here is one dated in 1986. I'm going to show you the front of it. That's page 65. Exact same recipe. Now, this is fairly new. What year is this? Is this an 05? Oh, it's a 10, okay? So, some of you are familiar with, and that's page 67, with this ball book. So, all of them are the exact same recipe. The only thing different is the year of the book. And that hence why Lippy doesn't add anything other than the canning salt, okay? And the method is very simple. So I'm gonna set this aside, and then we're gonna start going through it. And then while our jars are heating, I'm gonna tell you how I actually cook my greens from the pressure can state, off the shelf. That's where we're gonna give our flavor, you know, our true pot liquor flavor. So you could add the meat. The process time's gonna be for the meat, but I choose to leave it plain because if I don't wanna put it just as greens with pot liquor and meat of choice, I can put it in a soup, or I wring it out and I put it with eggs, kind of like you would do spinach. Now I took the liberty to wash. I had a wash bucket of greens and I julienne them. So I put them in my wash tub, rinsed them, drained them, and then I put them back in, put salt, heavy salt, about 1/4 of a cup is what I did. Now, this is julienne, so you can imagine the pot that I had. And I submerged them, and I let them sit for 20 minutes. I rinsed them outside. I called hypothermia. Y'all, that water's cold because it's just like 42, 45 degrees right now. So I rinsed them outside, got the salt off, then brought them in, rinsed again, and then I julienned. And that's where we're at, okay? So I got to get a sip of coffee. I'm going to turn you so you can see what I'm working with. You need coffee in this cold weather. I know I sound like a whiny baby. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you are probably got snow up to here, negative, I don't know, 58. Yeah, I'm a baby. I'm sorry. Now, like I said, I'm going to zoom in so you can really see. I may cut myself off, but this is what I want you to see. In this pot, I'm bringing it up to a rolling boil because this is what we're blanching our greens with. In my electric canner, I have 7 pints wide mouth. That's how many this canner holds of wide mouth. And I've added water, filled halfway up, according to the recommendations. Now, we will be pressure canning these greens in pints for 75 minutes. If you were doing quarts, it's going to be 90 minutes, okay? But we're going 75. Okay, we are at a rolling boil, and I'm going to do by batches, not many at a time. And what we're doing is we're blanching these to basically just wilt. You just want them to wilt. We're not trying to cook them, because remember, they're pretty much going to cook in that pressure canner. Add a few more. Now, mind you, they're going to wilt down to nothing, like most greens does. Perfect. And that's all we're going to blanch them for is 1 minute. And I didn't bring my basket, but a good key is set you a basket down in here. That way you can just pull them up instead of having to use tongs. Okay, we've gone 1 minute. Can you see the pot over here? We're going to put them in cold water. We're going to stop the cooking. I'll tell you what I'm about to do. This will work. There we go. Because you really don't want them to blanch more than 1 minute. Okay, we're going to do the second batch. And I am just going to repeat. Okay, while we're blanching those for 1 minute, I'm going to set the cool greens inside this large stainless steel pot without liquid. Okay, I've got them all blanched. You saw the process. Boiling water into cold water. Strain them into the pan. Now, what you didn't see, I've got fresh, clean water heating up on the stove out. Matter of fact, I just noticed it's on 8. I need it on high. We want right at boiling water, okay? And the jars are still warming. It will prompt me when it's ready to fill them, but since these have a cold temp, you don't need your jars piping hot, because remember, we blanched them. And that's because all we're doing is setting the color, lightly wilting. That's all we're doing. That's why you only go a minute. Like I think one batch only went like 45 seconds, because that's all you're doing, okay? Because they're going to cook in this canner. Now, while we're filling the jars and getting the hot water in them, then I'll share with you how I proceed to cook them. And it's telling me to fill the jars. See? I knew if I just talked a little bit, it would be ready. Because this is clean water, I'm going to dump this into the pot that I'm bringing up to temp. Okay, to my jars, I am going to add a ½ teaspoon of canning salt. Use whatever salt you want, as long as it's not iodized salt. But I'm telling you, canning salt is cheap, and I only use canning salt with all of my canning, whether it be water bath or pressure canning. Okay, I moved the jars around so you could get a good visual. Now, we're just going to pack the jars. We're not going to overpack, but I do like working with a wide mouth jar when I'm doing greens. All right, let's see where we're at. Now, I do mash down. I don't pack it now. I do mash down. Because we need 1 inch headspace. Make sure you don't go above 1 inch headspace. Let's see where we're at. Oh yeah, let's look at this. Oh, I can go a little bit more, guys. Let's see where we're at there. Okay, I'm gonna put some water in here and we may have to add a few more greens, a little bit of water. I'm trying to get 7. Okay, we're working with hot water, not boiling. Look at them bubbles. And that's what I wanted to see, because if you packed it too tight, don't fall in there, you wouldn't be able to debubble. And because they are leafy greens, they are not the easiest to debubble, because you want to be able to move around through the inside of these greens. But remember, don't go above 1 inch headspace. I'm going to keep the greens like that, and I'm going to add the right amount of water to give me my measure. Right there. Because we don't want siphoning. And as the greens cook in the pressure canner, they're going to wilt even more. And I want to allow that 1 inch headspace. Okay, we'll do one more. You see how I'm just putting some in and I'm just kind of tapping it down. I'm not really hard packing. One more little bunch. Let's see where we're at. Because as I just lightly tap, I'm trying to get it right at that 1 inch. Okay, let's see where we're at. Now, the reason why I do pints is because it's the perfect amount for our side dishes. We like a little green on our side dishes, and it's the perfect amount. Now, I've done them in quarts, but we end up with some leftovers. But I think the pint is more universal for the way that we use our greens. And yes, I've got my hands on the rim, but that's okay. I am going to clean it with vinegar. But I'm not too concerned because I don't have any oil. There's no meat. If I had meat in there and stuff like that, I would have done it with the funnel on top, see? But I'm not concerned about that. A little bit more water. Okay. Beautiful. Now I got to get the rest of them done. With vinegar on my rag, I am going to clean the top of my jar well, and this also allows me to inspect a second time for any nicks or cracks. Now I'm going to move my rag. I try to rotate where I'm wiping just in case there is something on that rag. Okay, now we're going to put our hot flats on. Not boiling, but hot. Doesn't matter if a little water drips on the top of your jar. It's clean. These are sterile. And a lot of you that has followed me, y'all know that I will always heat my flats. Bands go on just finger tight, guys. If you crank down, you will have failure. There we go. Sometimes these rings, because I use them over and over, but when they start giving me fits, I know I've got to chunk them. Come on, get on there. Like this one. There it goes. And you'll find that. Because I might have had these rings 3-4 years. Just finger tight. Worried about adding a jar to the center to make it 7 because these are in there tight enough. So I'm not going to put a jar in the center to even it out. I have filled my jars and I'm going to hit next. And it's heating up. So I got everything cleaned up. I'm waiting on this to prompt me to put the regulator on. But this is how I proceed cooking them. So we've pressure canned them. They've waited 24 hours. We get them on the shelf, okay? When I get ready to cook these greens and say I'm going to do just 1 pint, I'm going to pull out probably tasso, ham, bacon ends, hog jowl. It's going to be of your choice, okay? But for 1 pint, using the liquid now, I will put 2 cups of chicken broth. Then I will add my meat of choice to those 2 cups because that liquid will reduce down. I will chop up a little onion. That's when I'll add my garlic. I choose voodoo dust and hot sauce, and I'll add my sugar, and I'm going to let that come to a boil, and I'm going to turn it down to a simmer for 1 hour. And you're saying, well, that takes a long time. Yes, but no, because you're making that pot liquor. And then when that hour's up, it's going to reduce from about 2 cups of liquid to, if you're on a simmer now, with the lid on after it comes to a boil, you're going to lose maybe a half a cup. 3/4 of a cup of brine, pot liquor. But remember, you're making it up with the liquid in these pints, and the liquid in these pints is equivalent to 1/4 of a cup. So in other words, you've lost nothing in your brine per se because you're adding it back. But once it has simmered for 1 hour with all of my flavors, which is sugar, voodoo dust, onion, garlic, hot sauce, you got to do it to your taste. Salt if you want. I will dump these greens in, liquid and all, and it's going to cool it down. I'm going to let it come back up to about a medium temp, get a good little boil going, and then turn it off. That's it. As soon as that boil comes up, turn it off. Put a lid on, walk away. It's ready for supper, or you can serve it up then. But to get that flavor of as if you cook these greens all day long, these are collards, so they're going to be more tough, then all you do is make your pot liquor. But I have found 2 cups of chicken stock with my meat of choice, which gives me my fat, onions and garlic, and my seasoning. Don't forget your little bit of sugar. I don't like a bitter green, and I know most of you don't. But by bringing it to a boil, put the lid on, simmer it 1 hour, the flavor that it's going to give these canned greens it's going to taste like you've cooked them all day. Because really, that is the key to greens, is your pot liquor, whether it be mustard, turnips, collards. You can mix your greens. But I know a lot of you are going to say, well, what does it taste like? Well, right now, it's just going to taste like cooked greens with some salt, with no flavor. But you'll get your flavor when you do your pot liquor. And so that's how I do mine. Now, if you want to do quarts, remember, they're going to be 90 minutes. But I do not add the meat. I do not add any seasoning. You can now. That I will say, and I think the books missed its mark. You can season these with more than just salt. But just remember, when you season these, they're seasoned, so what are you going to put them in? Then they could be over seasoned. That's why I just do mine in a canning salt, and then I can control what flavor I'm looking for, because they're going to have delicious flavor. They're going to taste like a collard, and you're going to be like, but I'm missing something. You're missing the pot liquor. So that's why I do my greens like this. So I hope I answered y'all's questions, especially yours, Miss Betty. This is how I can them. Now you know how I move them to the table. And the key is that pot liquor, because y'all seen me. I do pot liquor. I could drink the stuff, guys. But a pint works great for Buddy and I, because it gives us a side. And I'll tell you, if you have any pot liquor left over, don't get rid of it. Because let's say you had some, I don't know, a little handful of fresh greens or something. That pot liquor will keep 3 days in the icebox. Then you've got your pot liquor made to add you some fresh greens. Okay, so don't throw it away, because two people's going to eat this pint of greens. And I could eat the whole thing. But like I said, I'm using mine as a side. If it was the main dish, I'd probably use a quart. But we like it as a side dish. So we've got a little ways to go, as in 75 minutes. When I come back, we'll be pulling the jars out of the canner. And you will also notice that there's going to be liquid in the bottom of your jars, and I'll show you that. But as the product, as in the greens, the jar starts cooling down, it will also drop. And then your liquid will then be above your greens, not below your greens. But a lot of you canners already know that. But if I happen to catch a new canner, I'll show you what it looks like, because we will have some liquid at the bottom of our jars. Because remember, we don't go over 1 inch. That is what is recommended when you're working with any greens. But there's the liquid that I was talking about. And as these cool down, you can see them still bubbling. There's a ping. The product, which is the greens, will go down to the bottom of the jar, and the liquid will then rise above the greens. And many of you know I always cover my jars just in case there's a failure. It will prevent the glass from going anywhere. I've never had a failure, but this is just something that I do. Well, y'all, it's 7:22. And remember when we started the video and I said it's 4 o'clock? And I looked at the stove and I was like, oopsie. I never moved this clock that's on the wall. That one, I never moved it backwards. So actually we started at 3 o'clock. It is 7:22 and we are complete. So yes, it took 4 hours and 22 minutes. But I did let my jar sit 20 minutes after it released and was ready to open the lid, remove my jars. I let them sit for 20 minutes to truly cool down, because it's not real warm in here and I didn't want a shock to the jars. And I would do that on my stovetop canner as well. So that's how I do my greens. It is Friday evening, so you probably won't see this tonight. You will see this Saturday morning is when it'll post. And as I said, I'm not sure what our weekend vlog looks like, but we're still going to do one. It may just be a little slim, or it may just be Lippy. I don't know. Let's just say a little prayer that Mr. Buddy keeps moving up and eventually up out the recliner chair. That's what we're hoping for. And then we know that he is well on his way. But as always, stay safe, stay well, and God bless. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, y'all.